Communication, the human connection, is the key to personal and career success. Paul J. Meyer says that.
Hi, my name is Symphony, and you're listening to Parenting Confident Kids with your host and my mommy, Tameka Anderson.
Welcome back to Parenting Confident Kids podcast, your guide to raising your children to be happy and excel in life. Think of this podcast as a guide to use from time to time whenever you need some encouragement on this path of parenting. Are you ready? Okay, grab the kiddos and let's learn how to parent confident kids. All right, so in this episode, we're going to start the first of a 4-part series called Bad Moms. Now, hear me out. You remember the movie Bad Moms, right? Yeah. So pretty much we're going to cover 4 topics and we're just going to call it the Bad Mom series, okay? All right. So the first topic we're starting out with is reconnecting with a strong-willed child. I think I can teach a class just on this subject alone. Do you have a strong-willed child out there? All right. So this subject most parents don't like to discuss, but after the trailer, when I saw the movie Bad Mom was released, I think it's safe for us to discuss the subject of bad moms, right? So what happens when you have a child who is strong-willed, to say the least, and you find yourself totally withdrawn from the child to the point of like a disconnect? How do you reconnect with a child like that? Is it possible? If so, like, what are the steps you take to get there? Okay, so I read the book Rising Strong by Brene Brown, which is super awesome, by the way. You might want to grab it. I'm just saying. However, the final pages really resonated with me. She was talking about rumbling with different emotions, and a couple of them really stuck out to me: pain and trauma. Now, the reason these stuck out so much for me, because my childhood was filled with both. For those of you who know me, you know I grew up in the foster care system. I became an adult, reunited with my biological mom, continued on this roller coaster of emotions until now I am estranged from my mother. Whew, that was a mouthful. Okay, so if that wasn't bad enough, I decided to become not only a foster parent, but a therapeutic foster parent to boot. I'll take glutton for punishment for 1,000, please. So I wanted to use my past experiences in the foster care system to help other children rise above their situations of frustration, pain, trauma, and just bad experiences, just to recognize that they're not defined by their circumstances, only by the choices that surround their circumstances, the choices that they make, right? So now, right in the heart of the situation, I found myself rumbling, a term that Brene Brown uses frequently in her book, with my own pain and trauma, just by taking on the task of fostering. So I asked myself, how does that make me feel? Where do I go from here? What do I do with these feelings? Now, I'll say this, as a foster parent, each placement has had its own set of challenges. But I would say that one of my placements affected me the most mentally. I was literally looking at my younger self and trying to parent her. Can you imagine that? The feelings I was experiencing were anger, frustration, disappointment, fear, shame, and failure. Now, wow was all I can say when I finally confronted the feelings and dealt with the pain. So why did I feel that way trying to help these children? So my question I had to ask myself was, do I continue to do this? How else can I better serve these children who obviously need me? These are the thoughts that constantly swirled through my head. When I finally got it together, I realized that I had the same feeling that I was in a particular placement. And I would consider working on a larger scale once I was, discontinued with that placement. And so now back to my feelings. What was it that made it so difficult for me? I was seeing a lot of anger, a lot of pain in the little girl's face every time she would act out, and it would cause me to withdraw from her. But I can't withdraw from her because this is something that she's used to, and therefore that's the norm for her. How can I hold this against this little child? At the same time, I couldn't understand her behavior because it's totally controllable. She didn't have to start acting out. She only acted out in my home after she was here for a little over a month. So like after the honeymoon phase was over. So I had to ask myself the tough question. How do I get back to seeing her through the same compassionate lens I used when I first met her? I had to really dig deep about raising a strong-willed child and think about how I was once this child myself. It was not easy, let me tell you. After researching and reading, I came up with a plan that seems to work like a charm. First of all, I would write her a little letter telling her that I loved her and that the things that I was happy with her about her behavior. I would also include my feelings and what I was expecting from her. I had her to read the letter out loud so that we can discuss it together. And then I asked her questions to make sure that she understood everything and what it meant. So once we were done discussing the letter, she knew what I expected from her and what I needed in order to get our relationship back on track. Like I said, it wasn't easy. I felt afraid. I was vulnerable. However, I knew the only way to get on the track was to step out of my comfort zone and just do it. Seeing how I was the adult here, I had to learn how to deal with my emotions while trying to include her in the process. I had to model the behavior that I wanted to see in her. You know what I'm saying? So often I explain to parents that when we have strong-willed children, the best thing to do is not to fight them and try to overpower them, so to speak, but to find a way to connect with them, get them to understand your point and model the behavior you wish to see. It's not easy. It is not easy. However, if you're consistent and patient, you'll be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So just to recap, in order to reconnect with a strong-willed child, let's just say you have a strong-willed child, and because of the will and the fight, because the struggle, the power struggle that goes on with raising a strong-willed child. So how do you reconnect with that child? Because you feel disconnected, because you feel vulnerable, you feel hurt, but you're the adult. You don't want to feel like that. So how do you do this, right? So difficult. However, what you need to do is to get them to understand your point. The first step is to get them to understand your point. The second step will be to model the behavior that you wish to see. And then the last point would be to rinse and repeat. And just know that although it's not easy to undo what you've probably allowed for a long time simply because you just didn't want to fight, it's not easy to do that. However, if you remain consistent and patient, you will be able to reconnect with the strong-willed child. All righty. You know what that means. Kids Corner. All right. So now we have Nadia. Age?
8.
Okay, Nadia, the first question you chose is, at what age is a person an adult?
Let me think. An adult might be, I'm guessing 29.
And why?
Because all of my cousins, they're not adults yet, and they're only 25. And they say it's 4 more years until they're an adult.
Okay, great. Next question you chose is, if you could change one rule in your family, what would you change?
The rule about us don't spend the night at each other's houses for a week.
Okay. And the next question, what is something that makes your family special?
Because when I do something and it's great for me, they do the same thing.
And the last question, how would the world be different if animals could talk?
Well, people would pretty much treat animals like humans.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much for the interview, Nadia.
You're welcome.
Bye. So we have an interview with a lovely Ryan-A, age 6. All right, Ryan-A, so your first question is, at what age is a person an adult?
35.
And why do you think so?
Because my mom used to be 35.
Okay, we have here Symphony, a 7-year-old. Hi, Symphony.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good, and you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. So we're going to ask you a couple questions that you chose for us to ask. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's get this party started. So the first question is, of all the things you are learning, what do you think will be the most useful when you're an adult?
I think it would be, confidence.
Confidence? Really? Tell me more of this. Why do you think that?
Because confidence makes you be smart, and also makes you create your own stuff.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And that's so true. So let me ask you another question. If you could grow up to be famous, what would you want to be famous for?
I would be famous for art.
Art. So why art?
Because art to me, it makes beautiful pictures.
Yeah. So what's so good about beautiful pictures?
They kind of look like a picture of your life.
Yeah. Cool. So the next question is, if you could be invisible for a day, what would you do? Dum, dum, dum.
If I was invisible, I would do, I think I would try to scare, my brother.
You would try to scare your brother?
Yes.
I think I would too. All right, and the last question. What is the hardest thing about being a kid?
Well, the hardest thing being a kid is to be focused.
Focused? So why is it hard being focused as a kid?
Because you kind of need to get the jigglies out.
You gotta get the jigglies out?
Yeah. Every time when you get something, like you're doing something serious, sometimes kids can't just handle it and just say funny stuff.
Oh, I absolutely love that interview. Well, that wraps up our interview for Miss Symphony. Thank you so much for joining us, Symphony.
You're welcome.
Bye.
That's all the time for now. Thanks for listening to Parenting Confident Kids, where you learn how to engage your children, empower them, and help them to excel. It would be awesome if you could take a quick moment to leave a review on iTunes. If you'd like your child featured on Kids Corner or have any questions you would like answered on the show, please visit us at www.parentingconfidentkids.com. See you next time.